Welcome to the Gen Z Journey, where we work with you through an entrepreneurial lens to build a wholesome perspective on life and build both our business and personal dreams together. Join our community on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Gen Z Journey. So, hello and welcome to another Gen Z Journey podcast. We're joined today by Brad Warren, and Aaron is presenting with me and hosting the podcast with me today. And this is the second episode in our fourth episode in our series on mindset and personal development. So we've brought Brad on because of his kind of wealth of experience and knowledge in this area, and we're really looking forward for him to kind of speak more on that. But like I like to always say at the start of these, you can find this podcast on YouTube now. The link will be in the description and it will be on all our social media, so you can go and find it there. And that's if you want to kind of see us in person, see us interacting visually as well. So definitely go and check them out if you want to. And so let's get straight on with things. Brad, just give us a little introduction of yourself and then we'll take it from there.
Well, hi, everybody. Again, thank you both for having me. My name is Brad Warren, and I've been an entrepreneur since 1978 when I first went off and started my own business, and have had a series of little small careers along the way, but mostly it's been in the world of coaching and consulting and training.
Amazing. Awesome. Thanks so much. And that's what we're really going to draw from on this podcast today. We're going to dig into Brad's background, dig into his coaching and all of his experience in there to really find out more about that entrepreneur mindset. You know, he's been an entrepreneur himself. He works with entrepreneurs. So it's kind of perfect for the niche that we sit in here on the Gen Z journey. So first question we always ask, Brad, is what is your definition of entrepreneurship and what does it mean to you?
Well, I always like to use the dictionary definition. And I find it's very appropriate, and it says it in the least amount of words. It says, entrepreneur, a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. So I include entrepreneurs to be the kid on the corner with a lemonade stand, all the way up to, Steve Jobs and Apple. It's somebody who goes out there, has confidence in themselves, and starts their own business, their own enterprise, but it's usually a business, and hopefully is successful, and is their own boss. One of the reasons I started way back in 1978 is I just don't like working for other people. I don't want to be told where to go and what time to be there and what to do and how to do it. I like to do it myself. And so that's kind of my definition of entrepreneurship and how I basically got started way back in 78.
Awesome. And I think, Aaron, this is something I think we can really take from as well. So last week's kind of topic was on the growth and the fixed mindset. And we discussed that a lot. We wrote an article on it and then we did a discussion. And I think the next question I have for you kind of really relates back to that topic and you said about kind of how entrepreneurship is someone who has that confidence to go out and follow what they want to do, right? And so do you think that people are either born with it or they just have it already, or is it something that people grow into?
That's a great question. I would say probably it's like the nurture nature question. I would say it kind of depends on your upbringing. My dad was kind of an entrepreneur. He was a blue-collar worker, a paint salesman, but then he started his own paint company. And so I saw him from that angle. I, as a youngster, had to get out there and earn my own money. I got a very, 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 very small allowance, which was not enough to do all the things I wanted to do. So I grew up in New York, so I was shoveling snow in the winter, raking leaves in the fall, gardening and mowing lawns. I was babysitting. I was very fortunate at 10 years old. My mom and 9 other women on the block were all pregnant at the same time. So they all had kids. So I had 9 potential people that I could babysit for very early. So I was an entrepreneur partly out of necessity, but also just because I wanted to have money so I could go bowling and I could, buy comic books and do other stuff. I had a paper route starting when I think I was about 11 or 12. So always had that going for me. Some people, I think it more comes just out of, if you're really, really passionate about something. This kind of goes to the whole thing about mindset. If you're really passionate about something, chances are you're not going to go get employed by somebody else and then be told to do what they want you to do. If you're excited and turned on about your product or service, about giving, and a lot of entrepreneurship is about giving. It's about doing for others, and in the end, you will receive. What's that expression? Better to give than receive. Actually, I like receiving too. Uh, they're both good, but when you're passionate about something and you have that mindset that I'm going to get good at this, I'm going to learn, I'm going to make mistakes, and they're not going to keep me down. They're going to be learning experiences. They're not mistakes, they're learning experiences, unless you let it be a mistake and sticks in your mind and becomes very negative.
That's awesome that you say that, because I completely agree. It's that mindset is mainly what it is, and it's that idea of having that growth mindset that we were talking about earlier in the week. We put ourselves in that idea that we want to create something. For you, it was creating money. For me, it actually was when I was younger too. I did the same kind of stuff. When I was younger in middle school, I would buy bowl candy in the Mexican store that everyone loved, and I'd go resell it at my school for $1, $2 for a lollipop. And I mowed lawns the same way as you, and I did a lot of that idea of just putting myself out there and just creating that business. So I agree that it's a mindset that you kind of create for yourself based on what you want to pursue and what your passion is.
And I want to add, you just kind of triggered another thought, Aaron, and it goes back to Rio's question about, is it learned or do you just grow up with it? I would say a lot more of it, in my opinion, is learned, because what I know about the human brain and the human mind, our minds, and this is an opinion, you don't have to agree with me, but our minds are the default mode of most human beings' minds is negative. Most of us, because of the messages we've been brought up with and the way we've been raised and what society says, and how many times as a kid are you told no? They've done research on this. When you go from like zero to 5, you're told no like 32,000 times, and yes, maybe a couple of hundred. It's always, don't touch that. Don't go over there. Don't cross the street without looking. And I'm not blaming our parents, because they were brought up that way and they just did the best they could, and that's how they taught us. So with a negative mindset, for most people, you really have to work hard. It's simple, but not easy. It's very simple to develop a positive mindset, but it's not easy. You got to work at it. I'm 69 years old. I'm still working at it. I still learn. I still listen to, I get on Zoom meetings. I still read books. I still subscribe to different websites and daily reminders. I get a daily reminder from this guy called Mike Dooley, and it's all about just expanding your mind and thinking positively. And I listen to Abraham, Esther Hicks and Abraham, and the list goes on and on and on of who my mentors have been. And it's a battle, because weeds will grow in your mind. Weeds grow. You don't water weeds. You don't do anything to weeds. They just grow. And it's the same in your mind. Negative thoughts, weeds grow in your mind all the time. And you have to be extremely diligent about catching yourself. Oh, look, I just had a negative thought. Oh, I just was thinking, poorly about that person. Let me see if I can reframe that and put it in a better light. So it is a constant, ongoing challenge to keep that positive mindset and to keep growing it.
You know what's amazing, Brad? You are literally quoting the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. The book from our article, you're quoting that word for word as to that battle of having that fixed versus growth mindset. So I love it.
Cool. And see, and I'm not even aware of that book. So I got it somewhere else. So there's many people saying what I'm saying now. In fact, there's not a whole lot of original thought coming out of me so far. A lot of what I'm sharing is stuff I've learned and am continuing to learn and will continue to learn. Because in my opinion, when you stop learning, you're basically on the road to dying. So keep reading, keep exploring, keep finding more things out there. And especially, I mean, you guys grew up with Google. I mean, it's even a verb. It's a verb now. When I was your age, there was no Google. There were no cell phones. There were no computers. I was born in 1951. When I went to high school, the biggest issues we dealt with were chewing gum and wearing blue jeans. We weren't allowed to wear blue jeans. And if you were chewing gum, you got sent to the principal's office. And now it's metal detectors, guns, opioid, drug. It's very different world, but some things have never changed. And having a positive growth mindset and having to work at it is something I don't think has ever changed over time.
Absolutely, and I think that was super cool. I learned a lot there from you, just from that little conversation that you and Aaron had, actually, in terms of Aaron saying, that you're quoting the book there, and you saying actually you'd never heard of it. And I think for me, what I found over the past couple of weeks is that actually that's a real big indicator of something in life that just is the truth. It just is the truth that what came out of your mouth there about the positivity, and we're constantly on a battle to maintain that positivity. The fact that Aaron has heard that somewhere else, and so have you, it's an indicator of actually that's a real big part of life. It's not just an opinion that Brad has. It's not just an opinion that I forget the name of the lady that wrote the book, Aaron, but that wrote that book. It's actually something that's been out there and potentially researched, and it's something that's true about life and about our mindset. So that's really cool. I just picked up on that there, and I just wanted to share that with people.
I'm sure you've heard the expression, "There's nothing new under the sun." And they're inventing new things. Obviously, the computer and a desktop, and those are new. But in terms of some principles and universal laws, they've been around since we have been walking on the planet, and they will continue to be around when we're done walking on the planet.
Awesome. So my next question for you, Brad, is I just want to dig more into your background. I want to take people from the start to the beginning. You started to talk about kind of your entrepreneur journey from when you were very young, but can you just take me through all your experience through coaching and consulting? Oh, I tell you what I'd like you to do. Can you make the differentiation that you make between consulting, coaching, and teaching? I think that's really valuable for people to hear. And then I'd like you to go on to kind of your experience in that area.
So when I'm working with my coaching clients, I actually tell them this up front before we even start working. A lot of coaches that I've seen are what are called pure coaches. They will ask you questions, but if you ever ask them a question, they either don't answer it or they make it into a question and turn it back to you. Well, why are you asking me that? Almost like a therapist. So the coaching model has generally been built on the coach draws out from the client the innate knowledge that they have inside themselves, and your job as a coach is to just find the right question to ask that gets them to go, I never thought of it that way. I could do this, this, and this. I found that a lot of my clients actually, when I first started coaching, they said, "Brad, stop coaching me. Just tell me what to do. Give me your opinion. You're a smart guy. Tell me what I should do to get more clients or to do this." So I started consulting and telling them what I thought. And I said, well, I'm putting on my consulting hat. Here's my opinion. I think if you go door knocking, you're not going to get any business, and here's why. I might say that to a real estate agent, because they were shy and timid, and I just couldn't picture them knocking on doors and interacting with people cold like that. So coaching is asking questions, getting the client to respond. Consulting is giving an opinion or telling them what I think they should do. Sometimes they ask me for it, and sometimes I just give it to them. And training or teaching is imparting a skill of some kind. So teaching somebody what I call my 5-step planning process for goal accomplishment, teaching people how to plan a week at a time. It's not my opinion. I'm not asking them questions. I'm just saying, here are the 5 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do these, do them in this order, do it like this. and you will produce. You'll get more done in less time with less stress. And they go, okay, teach me, and then I'll go ahead and do that. So that's. So thank you for asking that. All right, so I'll give you a very quick run through of pretty much my entire life with some of the key points, and then if you want me to elaborate on any, just ask me. So, born in 1951, graduated high school in '69, went to MIT, got a philosophy psychology degree at an engineering school. So already I was like very different than everybody else.
Before you continue, can I just say those were the two majors I wanted to do if I didn't choose finance, but I chose finance for the sole reason of making my degree look better for being hired, which I now kind of regret because I'm starting to feel like I don't even want to go the route of being hired as an employee. And I wish I would have taken the two things that I loved, which was philosophy and psychology. So that's cool that you did it.
It's funny that you say that, because the reason I went to MIT was I wanted to get into computers, because at that point they were brand new. They were just getting started. I was very good at math, a very logical mind. And that's why I went to MIT, and I almost flunked my first computer class and said, this is not for me. This is not what I wanted. It took me 2 years, freshman and sophomore year, to finally figure out what I wanted to do and major in. And that's when I picked philosophy and psychology, and actually wound up taking most of my classes at Wellesley, which was an all-girls, and I say girls, now it would be all-women's school out in the suburbs that MIT had a cross-registration program with. So you could take classes out there for free, and they took classes at MIT for free. So, all right, so philosophy and psychology, graduated in '73, went to Europe for a year, hitchhiked all over Europe for an entire year, came home, spent about 3 months living in New York, and decided that was it. I applied to graduate school in California, and I hitchhiked across the US, first down to Florida and then all the way across. Got out here to California in March of '75. Graduate school '76 to '78, got a master's in education with a counseling credential. I wanted to be a guidance counselor. Couldn't find a job, so guess what? Started my own business in 1978, September of '78, and started doing some consulting and worked for the school district, giving some talks. Wound up meeting one of the principals and writing a report for his school on how to reduce violence. This was K3, kindergarten to third grade, and they were fighting on the playground, and it was disrupting the classroom. And they wanted to figure out how could they get the kids to stop fighting so much. And it wasn't even interracial. It was intraracial. White kids fighting white kids, black kids fighting black kids, and Hispanics fighting Hispanics. So they had some money. They hired me. I wrote a report, 4 pages long, on a typewriter with whiteout. He then hired me to implement the report. So I did not have a teaching credential, but they hired me as a consultant for 1 year to come in and implement the report. Within 2 months, using sports and games to keep the kids occupied, we basically reduced violence to almost zero. And other teachers started to come to observe and ask, what are you doing there? And we want that too. And the parents actually wound up paying my salary for the next 9 years. So I was a PET, a physical education teacher, for 10 years. And we raised money by the parents contributing and by doing walkathons and fundraisers, fashion shows. And I helped, and that was kind of entrepreneurial at the time, to raise my own salary. After that 10 years, I went to work for a clinical psychologist and a divorce mediator, marketing them to the corporate world and learning how to do mediation and coaching. After that, I worked for the Fred Pryor Seminar Company for about 6 years, traveling all over the world and the United States, teaching seminars. Eventually, I mastered 7 different topics. Left that, became a coach for the Keller Williams Real Estate Company, one of their mega achievement productivity systems coach. We call it MAPS for short, and did a lot of coaching. And that's where I got much more involved in coaching real estate agents. And then from 2009 till today, well, until 2018, I was pretty much on my own, still subcontracted to other companies that needed an occasional trainer to go and teach a topic that maybe they didn't offer. So always was doing a lot of different things to earn income, multiple streams of income. That's another thing to keep in mind.
And let me just jump on that. That was another topic that we did a couple of weeks ago. So if you want to hear more on that and an article written about that, then head onto the website and you can find all that information there. But Brad, do carry on.
Excellent. And then in 2018, I switched careers after 40 years of doing the business coaching and the consulting and training. I became what's called a land banker. And I actually now look for investors. I help them buy land that's in the path of growth. And then they build what we call generational or legacy wealth by getting very huge returns from developers who need their land to build an apartment building or a shopping center or something like that. So just the last 2 years I've switched, but I got one coaching client still. He would not let me fire him. All my other coaching clients went away. This guy, I've been coaching him for over 15 years. And he said, you can't fire me. I'm sorry. It's not in the contract. You're not allowed to do that. So I still coach him. And I have one woman who is also an entrepreneur with a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency startup. And I'm doing it pro bono, and I'll get some of the tokens and coins if and when they eventually go public, and I can redeem those. So I may make a lot of money and I may get Zippo. We'll see. But that's part of being an entrepreneur.
He's taking the risk.
The multiple streams, I've invested in real estate. I have a book that produced, not much now, but I get, people still buy my book, and I get paid from that. Keller Williams had an ongoing program where if you brought people in, if you recruited people to Keller Williams, they have something called a profit sharing system, a profit tree. And I still, to this day, even though I left there in 2009, this is 11 years later, every month I make some money passively. It just gets deposited right into my bank account. I never see a check. I never have to touch anything. I still get money from the people that I brought in back in 03 to 09. So you always want to have some multiple streams of income in case one of them goes away. And look at all the people during this COVID pandemic. They had one stream of income, bam, that one was gone, and they are on the unemployment line or worse.
Exactly. Spreading out those streams of income and making you more robust, right?
Yes. So hopefully that answered that question. It's a little bit long, but I've been around for a while, so it's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I've got one that I want to kind of draw upon, and then Aaron, I'll let you kind of jump on a topic that you want to from all of that. But I wanted to jump right back to the start and where you talked about where you hitchhike around Europe and then across America. I wanted to, it's not something that we've actually spoken too much about on this podcast yet, which is kind of exciting for me to bring this to people. But how did that hitchhiking and traveling affect your mindset and how you thought about the world and how you lived your life?
What a great question. Very few people have asked me that. It opened my eyes to other cultures. I'm a white guy. I mean, this is so relevant today. I'm a Jewish white guy that grew up on Long Island in New York in a very wealthy community. Now, we were very, very middle class, but the rest of my friends, very, very wealthy. And I had one way of looking at the world. Now, going to MIT, that was up in Boston. I was living on my own. I was making all my own money, putting myself through school and meeting people from other cultures there. So that was pretty expensive. But going to Europe, I went to 13 or 14 different countries, about a month in each one, meeting people. I mean, when I was hitchhiking, I was getting picked up by native people that lived in that land, many of whom did not speak English. We're talking 1973 now. So I would carry around, I had a Spanish English and a French English dictionary. So we would do words. I would look up. I would learn a little bit of the language. I learned how to count to 10 in like 6 or 7 different languages. Don't ask me to do it now. And in addition, when you stay in the youth hostels, they close at 9 and they don't open again till 6 p.m. So for 9 hours, you're kicked out of where your stuff is, and you got your backpack and you're walking around town. I went to so many museums and churches and the historic sites. I saw things that, were hundreds and in some cases thousands of years old. I mean, you get to Rome, for crying out loud, and just look at the stuff that's still there that was built thousands of years ago. Completely changed my perspective on what it means to be a human being on this planet. It opened up my heart to other cultures. It put the travel bug deep inside. And just a quick aside, this year we've already had to cancel Cancun in May, a river cruise in France this week. Literally, we'd be on the cruise this week in France. September, we're supposed to go to Hawaii, and I don't think that's going to happen. So it put the travel bug in me in a big way. But more than anything else, I think it gave me an appreciation for how other people live, especially that they don't live as well as we do here in the United States. Even some of the most poor people in this country would be kings and queens in some of the countries that I had visited and some of the poverty that I saw. And that was even within Europe. I haven't done any traveling like in India, places like that, but I've been to China and a couple of other places. Just a greater appreciation for people and for life.
That's awesome. And I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurial minds like to do, actually. I pick and choose my friends wisely, and all of my friends, and myself included, want to be able to travel and really explore and get to see the perspective of the world from different countries and different individuals, because we have our American perspective, but there's so much out there and there's so many different ways of looking at the world that it's pretty mind-blowing. I just started traveling myself. I went to Indonesia for the first time, and really the first time outside of North America, this last September, and it was so eye-opening being there for 2 weeks and just exploring their culture and really getting to meet people. And like you said, they live on a whole different level. They make in Indonesia, they make about 1/10 of what the average American makes. And so,
if even that.
Yeah, and so it's really, their lifestyle and the way they act and what they appreciate in the world is so different than what we do, and it's very fascinating. And I'm very, very jealous of your experience.
Well, keep on going. You still got plenty of time. You guys are both young. I'm assuming you're both in your 20s.
Yeah, I'm actually going to the Philippines up next, and I was going to go this summer, but it doesn't look like it's happening with COVID either. But that was my next place, was the Philippines, so that's awesome.
And a little future projection for this podcast as well is that one of the big visions and one of the huge motivations for both me and Aaron and also Joe, another host, is that we want to take this podcast and we want to travel with it and get the entrepreneur minds of the world and get them to speak on here and really convey their experiences and bring some of what Brad was conveying there about people's different experience of cultures, what Aaron was saying about the different values and what they value in life. And we just want to bring that to the podcast and allow people to hear about it, because that would be awesome to be able to bring that to people in a different and new way. So definitely just a little future projection for what we're doing here at the Gen Z as well. But Aaron, did you want to hop on to anything else Brad spoke about in his experience?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really want to hear more about is you briefly mentioned you starting your own business in consulting and whatnot, but maybe giving a little bit more detail of when you were first getting into it, what you were excited about, what you were afraid in doing that, in creating a consulting business and a coaching business. What were the ups and downs, and I guess how did you get through those downs, and how did you make your ups be better than what they were?
Well, two things that pop into mind that I definitely want to share with people, and this goes to all entrepreneurs doing anything, in fact, even employees, but more so entrepreneurs and sole proprietors. And the first one is about what I call activity management. Now, a lot of people call it time management. My philosophy is you can't manage time. If I said, Aaron, here's 20 minutes. Rio, here's 30 minutes. I want you to manage those minutes, please. You can't manage minutes, but what you manage are the action steps that you take within a time frame to do something. So if I said, here's 20 minutes, how are you going to utilize it? And you said, well, Brad, for 5 minutes, I'm going to read the questions that I'm going to ask you prior to the event. For 10 minutes, Aaron and I are going to role play back and forth. And 5 minutes at the end, I'm going to practice the closing, because the last time we did one of these, I didn't close very strong. See, that would be managing an activity within a time frame. In October of 1982, so this was just 4 years into my entrepreneurial endeavor, I took a class called More Time, and they taught us a planning process for how to plan a week at a time. It wasn't the same one that I teach people today. I actually made up my own over time. But starting that Sunday when the class was over, October of 1982, so that's 38 years ago, I have never missed a Sunday where I sit down and do my planning for the upcoming week, where I literally map out what I'm going to do each day, rough time, we call it time blocking, where I'll put in, like, I'm going to do an hour and a half of lead generation. I'm going to do 30 minutes of paperwork. I'm going to, take a break here. So I cannot emphasize that enough. If you get nothing out of this podcast, but this one tip, it will completely change your life. Learn how to schedule a week at a time. Do it I like Sundays. I find Sundays to be the best day, and you plan Monday through the next Sunday. And then on that Sunday, you'll plan Monday through the next Sunday. And at some point, Rio and Aaron, I can provide a very brief one-page handout called the 5-step planning process for goal accomplishment. It's actually a whole chapter in one of my books, and people can just read that one page, get the basic gist of it, and start doing it. Make it a habit every week, because it's more the habit that's important, and that will completely change your life as it did mine. So that was one thing.
Absolutely, and I just wanted to jump on there because I had a huge moment of clarity, and I was just going to mention, Brad, we'll definitely have to get some links to your book so that we can put that in the description as well, so people can get hold of that. But I had a huge moment of clarity, and I'd kind of heard of the concept of the time blocking before, but just the moment of clarity that I had, and what I've just learned here is that actually, in that time frame, if we block time for kind of tasks, so maybe you block a time for working on the podcast, I'm not necessarily, because one of the things I struggled with was over detailed planning, and then I didn't feel I was getting stuff done because I wasn't doing the things that I'd planned, right? So if I plan a block of time where it was just working on the podcast, it doesn't necessarily matter what I did in that time. It's just the fact that I utilized that time, right? So that's a moment of clarity I've just had in terms of, I made that transition a long time ago, but I didn't quite know maybe necessarily the reasoning behind it. I just knew it worked for me. But there you go. Now I know why, and the what it's done for me is been really huge.
Yeah, and I want to input that's actually exactly what I was about to say is I quickly learned once I started, I learned to time manage a long time ago, back in like 5th, 6th grade. I was blessed, and a nonprofit taught me how to time manage. But what I learned very early on in my college career is that time management, and even, I struggled a lot with that time management in high school. And it wasn't until college that I realized I just couldn't do time management, but what I could excel at was activity management, which is what you're saying, where I would block out parts of my day for specific things. And that way, even though I wasn't necessarily working on a specific thing, I would say, for example, like what Rio said, I'm going to dedicate this hour to working on the podcast, whether it's a specific thing that's due or something in general. But I block out my activities rather than the specific times and the things that I'm doing, because when you try and do it into that detail, you waste so much time. I mean, a good example and a good statistic is employees. Employees actually, out of their 8 hour work week, they're only actually working for about 3 hours of that entire 8 hour work week. So, a lot of time goes wasted, and there's a lot of stats to prove it. And a lot of that is because people really try to time manage rather than activity manage. So, that's really awesome that you bring it up. And I think it's really something that people should take. It's that it's not always about being really detailed, but it's understanding that bigger picture.
Yep. A great book that goes a little beyond that, but that does talk a lot about time blocking is Gary Keller's book called The One Thing. One of the best books I've read about focus and picking one thing and being very clear about it and putting that into your blocks and then just working on that and not getting distracted. Incredible book. Talks about multitasking and how nobody is good at it, even though everybody says they are. There's a lot of scientific research that shows you are definitely not good at all when you're multitasking. So that was a brief aside, but The One Thing book. But there were two things. I said I want to talk about two things. I mentioned managing your activities was one. The second is referrals. The biggest mistake I think I ever made in my entire career was always looking for the next client and not building a referral network of people who would constantly be sending me clients so that I get multiple referrals from just one person rather than having to keep finding. So one person would end the coaching class. Oh, they're done with coaching. Oh, now I got to go get another one. And I'm in this new career with the land banking. I am much more focused on what I call finders. That's our terminology at our company. We call them finders. I'm spending a lot more time trying to find finders than I am trying to find actual clients with the money to invest. I love when I meet somebody that has the money to invest, but I would much rather meet a CPA who deals with people's finances and knows who's got money and who doesn't. That person can refer way more business to me than if the CPA buys one property themselves. They could send me multiple people who buy multiple properties, and I do much better. So that's my second big tip, is always be looking at how to build your referral network. And I learned from somebody who actually 21 years ago started out as a coaching client of mine. He's now my coach. He's the husband of the woman who's my partner in the land banking business. His name is Rick Silva, Silva, Rick Silva. He teaches referral marketing, referral marketing, not lead generation. He doesn't talk about leads. He talks about referrals. Leads are when somebody just shoots you a name just to get you off their back or gives you a phone number of somebody they think might be interested in your product. He builds referral networks and teaches people how to do that. And I've learned a tremendous amount from him and am learning a tremendous amount from him as I build this, what I think will be my last career for the next 10 or 20 years. We'll see. With the land banking, I'm building my referral network way, way more than just looking for individual clients. So those are two things that all entrepreneurs, I believe, need to keep their eye on all the time, is managing their activities and building a good, solid referral network.
And that's something I'm actually starting to learn right now. As I've been creating my own business recently and working on my business plan, I've realized, when I'm looking for people, I realize that the people that I really look for are those that have more connections rather than just individuals that have that skill set. I look for the people that I know have connections to everyone else I need, because then, you capture one person and you're a lot more likely to capture everyone that they own rather than that they have in their network, rather than, individually capturing them. Because why try to grab it individually when you can find the source and find someone that has everyone already wrapped together and can help you with that. So that's awesome.
I think one of the metaphors I was told once for that kind of stuff was about crops and gates. So you can have your own farm, right? And you can go and pull out all the crops that you want, which is chasing different kind of leads and clients and whatever. Or you can go to other farmers and ask them to open their gates so that you can pick their crop as well. It was quite an interesting metaphor someone gave me for that. It's just opening doors in different areas and expanding it hugely, and that's a big multiplier. But yeah, that's just a little metaphor I found for that. And Brad, I wanted to we'll deviate a little bit more off of the kind of mindset now and go more into the finance, because I definitely wanted to touch on the land banking, because that's actually initially where I met you, Brad, I think, when we were talking about that at some point, because I know Marcella and Rick, who Brad was just talking about as well. Lovely people. I'm pretty sure we're also going to have Marcella. I haven't spoken to Rick, but we're definitely going to have Marcella on the podcast at some point, so that'll be great as well. But I'd just like you to speak a little bit more on what land banking is, because I don't think enough people really know what it is, particularly my age. And if people don't think it's kind of relevant at our age, I think that they're missing something, because it's hugely relevant to us and our future planning. So could you just tell us what land banking is and kind of that relevance to us,
Sure. And I'm going to keep it very short, because one of the prerequisites to investing with us is you cannot invest with us until you've seen Marcella's presentation. I'm actually, after 2 years, I'm still a trainee. So even if right now, if you had $25,000, which is our minimum investment level, if you had $25,000 in cash and you wanted to hand it through the internet right here and put it in my hand, I could not take that money from you and go get you a piece of land, because you have not seen the full presentation yet. So I always try to get people to see one of our presentations. They're free. Marcella does 5, 6, 7 a month, and I can send you the link later and you can put it up. That would be wonderful.
We will do.
But the basic definition of land banking is what we do is we help patient investors buy pre-developed land that's in the strategic path of growth, hold 7 to 10 years. So this is the opposite of a flip. This is not buy the house, fix it up, and sell it in 3 months, 90 days. And please ignore my phone in the background. And we tell them an average hold period is 7 to 10 years. So it's a longer term investment. And then you wait until a developer knocks on your door and says, Rio, I see that, 3 years ago you bought this property. It's 1.25 acres. You paid $25,000 and we're going to give you $35,000. Now, most people would go, wow, I made 10 grand in 3 years. That's pretty good. We would coach you. We actually offer free, what we call negotiation coaching. We would actually coach you on how to respond to that developer. And in the end, you will triple or quadruple your investment. So you'll get 75 to 100,000 back. You thought 35 was good. Imagine going in the bank with 100,000. So that's the basic concept of land banking. Invest, set it and forget it. Once a year, you pay your property tax, which is, $100, $50, $200, depending on the size of the property, because it's just dirt, it's just land. And then in a few years, the developer knocks on your door and wants to buy your property, and that's exit strategy time. So that's what I do. And anybody that's interested, get a hold of me, and happy to. I got to add one thing, and especially for you younger ones, maybe you don't have $25,000 in the bank. Would you like to earn that money very easily and then be able to use that money to buy a property? I pay a referral fee. So as long as it's legal on this Zoom meeting, this podcast, for me to say that, I pay a 2% referral fee. So maybe your parents or your parents' friends or your doctor or your dentist or their CPA or somebody in your network buys $100,000 property, which is a very typical sales price. You're going to make $2,000 just for having introduced me to them. So that's a whole nother conversation for another time, but I'm open to talking to people. So yeah, just email me if you want more information. Be happy to get on the phone, chat a little bit, and then I can send you the link, because I want to make sure if you go watch the presentation by Marcella and then you refer somebody, we need to know that it was you so that I can pay you. So you've got to go through me to get to Marcella. And so we'll work all those details out. But that's what land banking is, and that's what I do now.
And I know land banking is actually a very successful thing because I actually have a family member who recently did that and held a piece of property for 5 years. They paid $200,000 for the property, and they ended up selling that property for $2 million. So they 10 times their money in 5 years. And all they did was hold that property. They actually put a few trailers and stuff and used it as storage, but it had nothing really built on it. And then boom, they sold it later on.
Yep. It can bring you phenomenal returns. We call it generational or legacy wealth. And especially, I bought my first property. My wife and I now own 11, but I bought my first one when I was 61. So I'm probably going to do one cycle through, maybe, when I sell those, reinvest again, and then all that's going to my daughter. But you guys at your age, you'll be able to do it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. If it took 10 years, so you'll sell at 35, 45, 55, and 65, you'll be able to do 4 cycles of this. Can you imagine 25,000 becoming 100, becoming 500, becoming 5 million, becoming, well, we won't even go there, 20 million, 30. I mean, there is that possibility.
That's what I mean about that relevance to my generation is we have the potential to make it compound interest, because you get your first property, maybe I get that 25k by the time I'm 25 or 30, I get that first property, and then in 10 years time I go through the cycle, that property then turns into 2 or 3. And because you don't know how much profit, and it's just exponential, and that's what talking about those cycles is so relevant to us.
And I got to jump in before I forget this. A lot of people, young people your age, because I have a daughter that's 27, and it took her a few years to finally get this. Start saving now. Put 10% of every check you get into an investment account. Bank, someplace, maybe earn a little interest. Do not ever touch it. Use it. It's not an emergency fund. That you should also have an emergency fund, 6 to 12 months of monthly expenses set aside in a cash account. That's for an emergency, like the COVID. My God, this has changed. A lot of people, oh my God, why didn't I do this when I was younger? Put aside money starting today. Out of every paycheck you get, 10%. You get paid $100, you put $10. Somebody gives you $10, you put $1. I don't care the amount, it's the habit. You build up that investment fund, and eventually you will have enough to buy, and it could be stocks. There's plenty of ways to invest money. Land banking is one amongst many. And again, our threshold is a little bit, you can buy stocks for a couple of bucks a piece. Some of the marijuana stocks now are 78 cents a piece. You could buy 100 shares for $78 and then hope that it goes up. So I'm just saying, you're young, maybe you don't have a lot in the bank now, but I guarantee you won't miss that 10%. You'll figure out, you know what, instead of going out to Chipotle's tonight or to some restaurant, I'll have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I'll sacrifice $5 and I'll put that into my investment account. Do that, and in a few years, you'll have enough money to invest, and then you'll be able to flip it over.
I think the key point there, too, that you mentioned was don't touch it no matter what. It's very important that you don't touch it, and it's actually a quote in Rich Dad, Poor Dad that, even the wealthiest of people will have a fund that they touch no matter what. Their business might be going down and under, and they won't touch it still because they know that fund is meant specifically for that long-term investment. And it's that ability of not only creating a habit, but creating discipline to not touch that no matter what, and really knowing that it's a completely different source of money, and it's that ability to separate your money between, your regular finances and your investment finances.
Yes, by the way, Harv Eker, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And he teaches what he calls the jar system. And it's you get literally jars with a hole in the top. I think there's 7. And each one has a percentage. So like daily living is 55%, education is 5%, play jar is 5%. investing 10%. And out of every check, you actually turn the check into cash and you plop the cash into each one of the jars. And some goes into all 7 every time. And at the end of the month, you take that play jar and you go play. That's your chance to go blow off some steam and have some fun. And then you take that investing jar and you go do something with it, or you wait until it gets to a certain level and then do something with it. But for those that have never saved or have trouble or I'm not good at it, which by the way, that's a mindset. That's your negative mindset talking to yourself, because it's like people say, oh, I can't remember people's names. Yeah, because you keep saying, I can't remember people's names. So your brain goes, oh, okay, we don't have to remember their names because we're not good at that. Start saying, every day I get better at learning people's names. Every day I practice remembering people's names. And then your brain goes, oh, I'm meeting somebody new. I better remember their name because that's what my brain's telling me right now. So keep that in mind. That mindset around money, we're terrible in this country with financial education. You mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one of my, not mentors, but read all of his books. I play cash flow once a month. The cash flow, his board game that teaches you all about investing and stuff. I play that game. I've been playing it for 20 years, once a month. Lately, we haven't been able to because I can't have my friends over to my house to play. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he says the same stuff. And T. Harv Eker, E-K-E-R, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind and the JAR system. Look it up go Google it. You'll find it there, I'm sure. And if you have trouble saving money, implement that JAR system and it will train you into a very positive habit about saving money. And then one day you will invest. And then you'll send me a check and you'll just say, hey, Brad, hi, thanks for the advice. Just kidding.
No, absolutely. And that's very true about that. We brought it right back to mindset. You know, this finance has a huge amount to do with mindset. It's almost all about mindset. And I want to reference one of our other guests for our generation as well. You know, definitely go and check out who Brad said, but check out Jedediah Collins as well. We had him on a couple of weeks ago. Ex-NFL player, now is a CFP, which is Certified Financial Planner, and he's working to bring that financial education to our generation. You know, having almost finished his book now. Aaron also, you know, it's been great for our generation to see that and to bring that relevance of financial education into our lives, you know, because like you said, we're very poor at that in this country, and I think in a lot of Western culture countries we're very bad at teaching people finance, which is kind of ironic. But what I'd like to kind of wrap things up with is just if we could each go over, me and Aaron will go over kind of one thing that we picked out and we really learned from today's episode about mindset. And Brad, I'd just like you to finish off with kind of a finishing message for people, but I'll just go first with what I've learned. And the one thing about my mindset that I've learned today is about living with intention. You know, we talked about that time blocking, you know, giving that time a certain intention, but not detailing it so much that you lose that ability to be creative and innovative within it. Sharing your intention with people in terms of the network that you develop, whether that be for referrals or whether it be just a personal network of friends, and you know, that's really huge. And also learning what other people's intentions are, which is what you spoke about in terms of the traveling. You know, what are their values, and they just have very different intentions to what I had when I was living back in California or in New York or whatever, you know. So that thing about intention has been the one thing that I've really taken from today's episode and what I've really learned. But Aaron, I'll pass it off onto you.
Yeah, so you know, with what Rio is kind of saying, it's not only intention, but for me, I also see that learning of awareness and really being able to be aware of what you're doing and consciously then make that intention to fix it. So, you know, it's very important that you're conscious about your finances, you know, that you understand your finances, that you're conscious of all the other perspectives out there, that you're really just aware of what is around you to then be able to create an intention. So, you know, the first step is to really understand what's happening around you, and then create that intention and that goal and that drive and take it somewhere and create that strategic path.
And Brad, what would be your final message for our listeners today, and what can they take away on mindset?
Well, you both just reminded me of something Deepak Chopra said. He talked about intention and attention. So it's great to have the intent, the desire, the want to, but if you're not attentive to it, then it gets lost in the daily distractions that come up. So you got to have both intention and attention. And to wrap it up, I mean, I've said everything I really want to say, but I want to thank both of you because this was really fun for me. It's my first podcast. It's a chance to give back, which I have done in many other ways, volunteering and donating and things like that. But given that for the last 2 years, I've moved into this other career, I don't have as much chance to coach anymore and to train and to consult and to just share and take, what's up here, 69 years worth of accumulated, hundreds of books and thousands of hours of classes and just be able to synthesize that and be able to put it out in a way that others get the message and hopefully it impacts them. In fact, it was really funny because today I did a 40-minute coaching session with a person who signed up for these email reminders. I taught the 5-step planning process to her real estate office, and she signed up for 4 Sunday emails where I just send an email and say, reminder, plan your week in advance today. And it's just that little kick, that's the attention part, that little kick in the rear end. And she sent an email back, oh, Brad, I'm having so much trouble with this planning. I get distracted. I don't feel like I'm getting stuff done. So I spent 40 minutes on the phone with her, went over the process again, taught her a couple of little extra tips. And at the end, I said, did you get any value? Oh my God, this was incredible. This is great. So this was incredible, guys. This was great. I felt like I had a chance to share some stuff and hopefully it'll make a difference in your lives and the people that listen to it. And, the only other thing I want to say is just frickin' do it. Don't wait. No one else is going to do it for you. There's, countless, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it. No, just frickin' do it now. Get out there. If you're watching this at some later date from the date, whenever you're watching this, put it into action immediately. Pull out your calendar or your planner or your phone, wherever you keep track, and write down on Sunday, I'm going to plan my week in advance. I'm going to find Brad Warren's 5-step planning process. I'm going to read it. I'm going to learn it, and I'm going to do it. Do not wait, because I will absolutely 100% guarantee you that if you wait, you won't do it ever. At all. It will fade away. Another coronavirus message will come in. Trump will do something. Obama will do. Somebody will say something, and you're going to go down what we call the tunnel with no cheese. And you're going to go down there. You're going to look around. There's going to be no cheese. You're going to come back up, and you will have wasted some precious minutes of your life. So please don't make that mistake. Do it. Just frickin' do it now.
Amen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so important. So important. And finally, Brad, can you just give us all the information of where people can find you if they want to get in contact with you and have that conversation?
The easiest thing is my email, which I got a really long time ago. The fact that my daughter calls me technologically challenged. This is really cool. I got this a long time ago. It's just my name, Brad at bradwarren.com. BRADWARREN.com. Brad at bradwarren.com. My website, my old website for when I did coaching, and there's a bunch of free resources there. People can get some articles I wrote and some blog posts that I put up, is www.bradwarren.com. Very original, not too hard to find. And I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Facebook. And you just put in, I think in LinkedIn, it's Bradley, middle initial K, Warren. And that one, you'll see the land banking. You'll see little $100 bills growing out of the dirt. That's my land banking one. So lots of different ways to find me. But the easiest thing is Brad at bradwarren.com. I'm here in Castro Valley, California. And I got a lot of time on my hands. So I'm happy to chat with people. If people want to have me come speak at other events that they might have, very happy to do that. And again, thank you both for the opportunity. I had a great time, and hopefully this was useful to whoever watches it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we had an awesome time. I mean, I know I've learned a huge amount, and we get the benefit of doing that and learning from you guys. But yeah, I'm sure the audience will love it, and we look forward to hearing their feedback on it as well. But definitely, we'll finish as we always do. Cheers for now. As always, head over to the Instagram and Facebook at Gen Z Journey, where you can get an inside scoop of what's going on behind the scenes, as well as seeing the exciting guests that are coming on for that week. But above all else, thanks so much for listening. We really appreciate all your participation, and we're excited you're on this journey with us. See you next time.